I wasn't even given a chance to respond. The world swirled around me as sparkles of green whisked through the air. It seemed like a million winds were blowing, yet the air was stagnant like the oceans on Midwinter's Eve. The sparks grew denser as my feet left the floor. I found myself paralyzed, whether out of fear or a mere side effect of the spell I was unsure, but the fear gripped my mind nonetheless. I gripped my eyes tightly shut. I could feel a burning pain in my wrist, but I dared not look. Slowly, the burning subsided to a tingling sensation before fully disappearing. I chanced a glance to find that the sparks of magic had disappeared, and the elderly man had returned to his desk and was shuffling some papers. I cleared my throat.
Ah, wonderful. I was wondering how long you'd stand there. You're all better now,
he said with a toothy grin.
But remember,
his voice seemed to waver at a higher pitch as he spoke,
do not interact with any strange sightings. They are not to be trifled with.
He shooed me outside before I could ask what he meant. I could see the sun beginning to set below the canopy of trees. I had been gone longer than I meant. I hurriedly walked into the woods. The old man's words echoed in my mind as the great tree trunk's shadows began to cascade along the floor. My head snapped towards every rustle of grass and crack of a twig that echoed through the dusk. The forest shimmered as a biting wind whistled through the undergrowth. I hastened my step. Slowly, the darkness enveloped the path with only small pinpricks of moonlight penetrating the thick foliage above. The hairs on my neck stood up as I whirled around. I could almost see glowing green eyes staring at me, but they simply vanished. I was imagining things. I had to be. My teeth chattered and clinked as what had been a nice autumn warmth was sapped away into the unforgiving night. It couldn't be much further back to town now. An eerie cackle echoed through the woods, carried by the trees themselves. I shook my head as an overwhelming weight took over. It was just the birds. I was tired. I couldn't sleep here. My eyes were watering and burning with exhaustion as I pushed along. Each step felt like an uphill battle where I was carrying a net's worth of fish back from shore. Damn side effects. I felt my body swaying side to side. A slender prod caressed my arm. I jumped. A large branch protruded from nearby trees with slender twigs arched towards the road. I heaved with relief. There was nothing out here. Then I heard something. A sobbing. A young girl, I assumed. I squinted and tried to find the source in the dark, but alas, it was impossible. I edged off the path, taking each step carefully. I nearly tripped over multiple tree roots as I approached the sound. Though barely visible, the silhouette of a young girl could be seen between two trees. Her head bowed as the eerie sobbing continued.
Little girl, are you okay?
I called. No response. I walked closer.
Are you lost? Can you hear me?
As I moved closer, I could tell she was nursing her wrist.
Did you hurt yourself? I said. There's a man in the center of the forest who can help patch you up. In fact, he fixed my wrists earlier.
I smiled weakly at the joke. The child sniffled and looked up. She had emerald green eyes that glistened with tears.
Really?
She stammered. She held out her broken hand. I grabbed it without thinking. Her skin was colder than the night itself. Her fingers clamped around my own wrist as the same cackle from earlier erupted from the girl's lips. A more sinister air about it. I tried to pull away as the young girl's frown morphed into a smile. Her form slowly grew into a hulking, hunchback creature. Her once soft, childlike features were now jagged and bony. Her fingers clamped unbreakably around my arm. Her eyes glowed with power as I felt pain shoot through my wrist.
No one ever listens to the warning.